Hi there, I'm Eitan, and welcome back to the Wix Wiz. Today we're going to be learning how to create a custom paywall for your Wix website so that you can block out either part or all of a page and allow access only to either members or people who are subscribed to a certain pricing plan, kind of like what you're about to see behind me. You can do it on a blog page, kind of like this, or on any other page of your website. We're going to be using Wix code or Velo code in order to program this. But if you feel like you're struggling along the way, I do encourage you to push through and try and do it yourself. It's very rewarding. But if you feel like you still want a no-code solution for something along these lines, then I do encourage you to check out the new app that we just released in the Wix App Market, which essentially allows you to do everything that you'll see in this tutorial using a no-code solution. Then again, I still encourage you to try and do it yourself, especially if you have some kind of specific nuances that you want to introduce. So if that's you and you want to check it out, let's get started. Okay, so before we get started, let me just go over the setup that I have here. So I have a blank Wix Classic website, and everything that I'm going to show you here can be done on Wix Studio as well. And I've added a few of the Wix business apps. So first of all, I've added in the Wix members area, and that's why you can see that I have this login bar up here. And I've added the plans and pricing. And those are the two that we're really going to need for the functionality of this tutorial. I've also added in the blog just to demonstrate how you'd implement a paywall on a blog, because I think that that's a typical scenario. But you don't have to add the blog app if you're not actually creating content on the blog and you're using your paywall on another page of your site. So in order to get started with the actual paywall, what we're going to be doing is using a Lightbox. And essentially what we'll do is we will program this Lightbox or program the page to open the Lightbox when specific conditions occur, such as the person isn't a member or the person doesn't have the right pricing plan. Essentially, they're not supposed to access the content and we want to paywall them. So I'm going to go ahead and start with by adding the Lightbox. So I'm going to go right over here to add elements. And I'm going to look for Lightbox. And if you can't find it, you can always just search right up here. So let's search for Lightbox. And yeah, so you can just pick any one of these Lightboxes that we see over here. And we're going to get rid of most of what's in the middle here. And you'll also want to style your pop-up so that it looks how you want it to look when it opens for users. So just for example, if you don't want it to take up the entire screen, so for example, yeah, have it something, I don't know, something like that. You might want to also change the layout. Okay, so you'll want it to maybe be kind of closer to the bottom of the screen. And we might want to expand it to cover kind of more than just the width of the center of the screen so that it really blocks out all the content that we have. And I'll get rid of all this stuff that we have here in the middle. And I'll also go ahead and I'll change my overlay. So I'll change the background to actually be transparent because I want the content that's behind the paywall. So like this area will be the area that's blocked, but the content behind it I wanted to show kind of like as like a teaser or whatnot. And depending on your scenario, you might not want to do that, so you can leave the overlay. And we just want to make sure that the overlay, when we set up the overlay, so we want to make sure that clicking closes pop-up is toggled off. Okay, because we don't want people to be able to close this pop-up because that would be pretty problematic for us. So I'm going to go ahead and change that. And now essentially we have a Lightbox, which will stay open indefinitely once it's opened. Okay, the user won't have the option to close it without leaving the page. And I'm going to add in just some elements here because now it's kind of just like a blank frame. And I'll just add in, let's say, a box. Let me add in a box. And I'll kind of spread that out to the entire size of the Lightbox. And I'll add some text. So let's say, oops, You don't have access. Sign up to view. Okay, or I mean whatever your kind of message to the user will be. And we can also, let's say, add a button that will serve as like a CTA, a call to action that will encourage the user to do something. So let's say here this will be sign up. Okay, and we can figure out what that button does later on. It's not so critical. What we're really focusing on here is how we get this lightbox to show for the people that we want it to show. So now that we're done kind of designing the lightbox, just don't forget to give your lightbox like a nice good name. So I'm going to go over here into Pages and Menu. And this, I'm going to change the name because I don't want it to be called Promotion End of Season Sale. So I'll go ahead and I'm going to rename that and I'll call this Paywall. Okay, just like that. And it's important also because we're going to be opening this lightbox via code. So we want to give it a nice, concise, simple name that we'll remember. So paywall, and now we're ready to hop in and start writing some code. So in order to add code to our Wix website, we're going to have to turn on dev mode or code mode if you happen to be in Wix Studio. And in the classic editor, that's right up here on top. In Wix Studio, if you're in Wix Studio, it'll be somewhere kind of on the side here on the bottom. You'll see like these squiggly brackets that you can click to open up the coding panel. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to turn on dev mode. And this might take a moment as Wix kind of adds some additional features kind of into the editor. And once we've done that, so I'm going to utilize this page code panel over here in order to go to the blog post page. Okay, so this is a template essentially which displays blog posts on my site, and any changes that I make to this page will affect essentially all the posts on my of my blog. So essentially what we want to do is put the code that will trigger the lightbox conditionally here on this page. And that way, whenever somebody's visiting my blog, if they don't have either member access or plan access, then the content will be covered by the lightbox. And depending on your scenario, so you might want to add, additional conditions like only opening it for certain blog posts, etc. I'm not going to get into that, but you can essentially utilize the information about the post page using the blog API, etc., in order to figure out which post it is, and dynamically load the paywall. But let's start with this basic scenario. So we're going to be writing our code over here on the bottom inside the code panel. And first thing I want to do is I want to make this lightbox show if the person is not a logged in member. So my content is for members only. And for blog posts, you also have the option to completely block access to the page for non-members. So you could choose to go that route, but you kind of lose on that, that paywall experience where kind of the paywall pops up and blocks it and they're annoyed and they kind of see the content. Not only that, but it could also have SEO implications because if only members can access the page, then that means Google can't access the page and it might not be indexed. So if you want your page to be indexed, but you still want to prevent people from accessing it to some extent, then a paywall is probably the way to go. So as I said, the first thing we're going to do is block this page to non-members using the paywall. And in order to do that, we're going to need to know who a member is on our site. So in order to figure out if the person currently viewing the site is a logged in member, we're going to be using this Wix members front end, okay, API, and specifically the current member, sorry, right over here, and get member. And essentially what's going to happen is that if we're trying to get the member, but there is no member, then it will return undefined. Another option here would be to use authentication and logged in. So this is another way to check if the user is logged in. But using this won't give us information about the member if the member is logged in, which is something that we will possibly want as we develop this solution. So that's why I'm going to go with the current member option over here. So let's hop back into the editor. And I'm going to create a function here. So I'm going to get rid of all this kind of commented out code that we don't need. And I will create a new function, and it's going to be an asynchronous function. And I'll call it check check for member. And what we're going to do here is essentially utilize that current member API I just showed you. In order to do that, we're going to go up here, and I'm going to import current member from Wix members front end. And then over here inside the function, I can say const member equals to await current member dot get member. And you'll notice here that I'm using async await because this is a promise that needs to be resolved. So if there is a member, then we will have essentially the data about that member inside of that member variable. But if there's no member, then we will essentially have undefined. So we'll have like a nullish false value, and I'm just going to return that member. Okay, and that's just going to be a function to check if we have a member. And I'm going to create another function, so async function, which is going to essentially open our pop-up if there's no member, our lightbox slash pop-up. I'll use those interchangeably. So here we'll do is conditionally open pop-up. And then what we'll do over here is we'll say const member equals to await check for member. And then I'll say here if no member. Okay, so if we don't have a member logged in, then what we'll do is we'll open the lightbox. In order to open the lightbox, I'm going to import something called Wix window here on top. So import Wix window front end. And then over here inside the function, I'm going to say Wix window frontend dot open lightbox. And here we're going to need to pass in the name of the lightbox. So I could just write here paywall. If you remember, we named it earlier. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to declare a global variable up here. And I'm going to call this paywall lightbox. And I'm going to say that this equals to the word paywall. And that's what I'm going to actually put here. Okay, because I try not to. Sometimes I do it as much as I don't like it, but I usually try not to hard code values into my functions and code, because if this paywall lightbox is going to change, then it would be harder to change inside various functions than just changing one global variable up here, assuming that we might use this, paywall lightbox variable in other places as well. So it's just best practice to do something like this. Okay, awesome. So we have this like that, and we're going to want to call this conditionally open pop-up inside of our onReady function. Okay, so here I'm going to call conditionally open pop-up. And so if we don't have a member, then we should be opening the pop-up. I'll go ahead and I'll add in a log here just so we have some visibility as we're testing this. So console.log, and I'll say member and member, just so we can see what the value of member is as we test this. So that's our basic setup. And now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to publish the site and head over to the live site to test this out. Okay, so here I am on the live site, and I'm going to head into one of these blog posts that I have over here and just wait for that page to load up. And there we go. Okay, so you saw that the lightbox appeared. I don't have any option to close it. Okay, so it's just kind of there. And it's mostly blocking the content. Like, if somebody wanted to read by like kind of scrolling through and like reading like that, they could. And I could also go ahead and like adjust the lightbox so it opens up even higher and like makes the text even less visible. And you saw that it took like a slight second to pop up, and you can change stuff like that, and also like kind of that fade in, those stuff can all be changed. But essentially, this is the functionality. So I'm going to make a few slight design changes to the paywall, and then I'm going to do those alone. I won't involve you in that. And then I will head back and show you how to do the next step, which is to make it conditional on access to a certain pricing plan. So in order to facilitate the next step of the tutorial, which is dealing with pricing plans, I've set up two example free pricing plans over here. So plan 1 and plan 2, and that's what we'll be utilizing to provide access. So for example, we'll provide access to anybody who has plan 2, let's say. So let's go ahead into our editor. And here we are. So this is my redesign of the paywall. And here I am back on the blog post page. And I'm going to open up the code panel. And now what we're going to be doing is we're going to be utilizing this API right over here. So it's part of the Wix pricing plans front end. And it's something that will allow us to list current member orders. So it will get essentially a list of all the orders that the current member is subscribed to. And we can also get important stuff like information about the orders. So for example, let me scroll down here a little bit. So status. Okay, so we're going to want to also check, for example, that the order is active and that, yeah, status isn't canceled, that the last payment is paid, for example, etc. So we'll want to check all those things before we actually give somebody access to the page. But let's start with the basic implementation of the API. So we're going to need to import orders from Wix pricing plans front end. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to go ahead and go right over here. And right under our Wix members import, I will go ahead and import orders from Wix pricing plans front end. There we go. And here inside of conditionally open pop-up, we're going to be changing our logic a bit. So we're going to want to, instead of check for the member, we're going to want to check for the orders. Okay, so what I'll do over here is I'll just comment this out for now. And we'll go ahead and we'll say const orders. Well, no, I don't want to do that because here the import is already called orders, so I don't want to name them the same thing. Okay, so instead what I'll do is I will name this, let's say, current member orders. And I'll say here await orders dot list current member orders. And then let me go ahead here and add in a log, console.log, and I'll log here member orders and current member orders. And here we'll also comment this out for now until we're ready to add in kind of that new condition. So now that we've done this, I'm going to publish the site. And before I test the blog page themselves, I'm going to want to sign up to one of the plans. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead. Whoops. Okay, small technical difficulty here is that the I see that the Lightbox is actually blocking also the menu navigation, which is a little problematic. So let me just go ahead and go back, and I'm going to go here to plans and pricing. And here now I can see plan 1 and plan 2. So let me go ahead and I'm going to select plan 1, let's say, sign up, and I'm going to just kind of create a fake sign up for the site. So let me go ahead, I'll sign up with email, and I'll say Aton plus tester1@gmail.com. And I'll give a very secret password here and go ahead and sign up for the site. Awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and get this free plan. And that's it. So I'm now a subscriber to plan number 1. And this Lightbox appeared. And the reason it appeared So I'm happy this happened because it's a good educational opportunity. So let me just double check the triggers on the Lightbox. So I'm going to go open my Paywall Lightbox, and I'm going to select the Lightbox, and then here open up Set Triggers, and you can see here that it's set to automatically display pop-up on pages. So the whole thing that I tried to prove to you before that it wasn't that it was popping up for a non-member might have actually just been this. Um, but I don't think it, like, the code should have worked anyways, and we can test it out later again. But this is an important thing to do. So when you add the paywall to your site, the pop-up, you're going to want to set it to no. So automatically display pop-up on pages is no. I personally find it very annoying that this is the default, that yes is the default. It always happens to me that I add a lightbox and I forget about it, and then I suddenly start seeing the lightbox and I'm like, wait. If that happens to you too, give a thumbs up and comment below. But yeah, so you'll just want to set this to no, and I'm going to publish again, and that should deal with that little problem that we have. Awesome. So let's go ahead and do what I actually wanted to do, which is go to the blog. And I'm going to head to one of the posts, and I'm going to open up the console over here. And here, whoa, ignore all that. But here you can see the member orders. So if I open that up, then you can see here a list of the member orders with all of that info. So we have plan name, we have plan ID, and generally I would recommend doing this based on IDs and not based on names, because names can change and IDs can't. At least I think the names can change with the plans. I'm not 100% sure about that, but generally it is best practice to use IDs. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab, well, I said that we want them to be able to access with plan 2, and I currently have plan 1. So what I'll do is, let's just do it for plan 1, because that's what I'm subscribed to now. But generally, you'll need to get the IDs of all the plans that you want to reference in the code. So I'm going to grab this plan ID, and I'm going to go over here. I'm going to go back here into the editor, not to the paywall, but to our blog post page code. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add in a new variable. So const plans with access. And you'll notice here that I'm using a plural because it's likely that we'll want to give access to multiple plans. And in order to facilitate that, it's best to build this out as an array. So even if currently I only have one ID here, it's best to build the code with scalability in mind. So I'm going to build it as an array so that if I want to add more plan IDs that do have access later on, then that should be easy. So now that I have the list of plans with access, essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to want to make sure that at least one of these plans with access is inside of my current member orders. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to map my current member orders. So let's say const, or you know what I can do actually? I can use a filter as well. You could either map it or filter it. Let me think about it for a second. Yeah, let's do a filter. So I'll say const member, let's say member orders with access equals to current member orders dot filter. And we're going to want to have several filters here. So one filter that we're going to have is we're going to want to make sure that it's an active membership and that it's a paid membership and all the other things that I mentioned before. So first of all, let's say order, and we'll say order dot, let's see what we have here. Let's see if I can remember. Status, okay, status equals active. Okay, so this will automatically filter out all of the orders that don't have a status of active. Okay, so now currently member orders with access, which I spelled wrong, I just see here. Member orders with access will only have orders with a status of active. And I'm going to add in another filter. And you could probably combine these all into one filter, but I'm choosing to do it as multiple just for cleanliness sake, even though it might slow down the code a little bit. But it's not like we have thousands and thousands of orders. It's probably going to be somewhere between, 1 and 5 orders. Like that's the numbers that we're talking about in that orders array. So order, and here we're going to say that order dot payment. This is a good time to check the documentation. So we had, let's see what we had here. So we had status. That was one thing that I mentioned. I'm assuming that we don't also need to address this because there is a canceled option here inside of the status. What we do want to check is the paid. Let me see here. I saw that somewhere before. Here, last payment status. And again, this is something that you can decide. I mean, you can decide to, let's say if the payment is pending, to allow them access or something. I mean, that's really quite nuanced. I'm going to assume that we want active members who, active plan subscribers who have paid. Okay, that's going to be my assumption. So I'm going to say that the last payment status should be paid. Let me head back into the editor and I'm going to zoom right in here. So last payment status equals to paid. And the last thing we're going to make sure is that the order ID is included inside of our plans with access. Okay, so let's do that right over here. So we'll say dot filter order, and we'll say plans with access dot includes, and here we'll have the order dot plan ID. Okay, so now if an order passed through all these filters, that means that the person should have access. So I'm going to say here that if member orders with access dot length, okay, which is essentially the same as saying dot length is bigger than 0, then we're going to open the lightbox then we will not open the lightbox. Okay, but if it is equal to 0, okay, so I need to change the logic out here. So if dot length is smaller than 1, or you can also just say no member orders with access dot length, that's also an option, then we're going to open the lightbox like before. Just going to grab that code and put that right over there. And I'm going to move this console log up here because it just makes a little more sense. And I'm going to add another log right over here, which will log the member orders with access, just so we have some visibility on that as well. So I'm going to say here member orders with access, and that's going to be member orders with access. Cool. So I think this is looking pretty good. And what we're going to do now is test it out and see if it's working. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to publish this, and we'll head over to either be very excited or to head into a debugging session. So here I am on the live site, and as you can see, the pop-up came up. It's working and it's not working. So the logic is working. Because if you take a look here at member orders, so there's 1 in the array, member orders with access, we don't have any in the array, and the pop-up did come up. So that is, in terms of that part of the logic, it's correct, but for some reason, my order didn't make it through all the way. Okay? So there's two things that might have gone wrong. One that definitely went wrong and one that might have gone wrong. So one is that I don't see here the reference to, well, I do see it, but here it says last payment status not applicable. And that's most likely because I'm on a free plan. Okay, so I didn't actually pay money for this for this plan. I was free, so it has a status of not applicable. So if you have plans that are free and you also want to allow them for access, then you'll have to either ignore the last payment status, or we can add in like a condition. So instead of having just paid, then we can also add in the not applicable. So for example, here it could be equals to paid or not applicable. Okay, so something along those lines. So that should deal with that. The other thing I wanted to double check is just that I got the right plan ID over here up top. So I'm just going to double check that. That's 7270. And then here, yeah, 7270. So I was afraid that I might have accidentally taken one of the other IDs that exist over here. But yes, I have the right plan ID. So let me try publishing that. And I'm going to refresh this page. And now it seems to be working. So here you can see that I have member orders, there's one, and member orders with access, there still is one, and I have access to this page now. Okay, and if I go ahead and I cancel my subscription, let me go over here to my subscriptions, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cancel my subscription because I'm spending a lot of nothing on it every month. And then I go back to the blog, and I go back to one of the blog posts, and I want to read the blog post, but I don't have access. Okay? And you can see here that there's still some fitting to do here in terms of like where the placement of it's kind of off kilter a bit to the left, and maybe it's not covering enough of the text to be annoying. But we got the basic logic down. So we got it for members, and we got it for pricing plans. Okay, so that's the logic that we'll have there. And I just want to talk about one small caveat regarding this approach to paywalling. So this is a very common approach to paywalling, so you'll see it on many reputable sites. So I'm not saying that you shouldn't use this. I'm just trying to point out that it doesn't actually protect your data per se. So first of all, here, I mean, somebody could technically still read this article, but even in the scenario where you got it to fill the entire screen and completely block out the article, somebody with some tech savvy could get rid of this paywall. So for example, they could go over here into inspect, and they can just find what element this is, okay? And they can just go ahead and like delete it, okay? And there's still some stuff blocking there, but let's say I'll delete that too, and there we go. I gained access. So anybody, again, this is probably only 5, 3, 1% of the people. I don't know how many people of the world's internet users know how to like manipulate HTML in that way. But you should just know that you're not, this is a front-end protection. So somebody could technically go ahead and remove the paywall. It's more of an annoyance and like a behavioral push to gain access instead of like real protection of data. So once you send data to the front end, once you send data to the client, they can access it if they know what they're doing. So that's just one thing to note about this paywall approach. So one last thing I want to show you, or idea that I want to give you, is other ways that you can approach this paywalling. So I just showed you until now how to make a lightbox appear, but you can also use other elements in order to block out certain parts of pages and stuff like that. So for example, I can add in a box element. Let me add in a box element. Okay, it looks a lot like my paywall. And let's say this is the part of the page that I want to block out for some reason. And I can go ahead and I can call this Paywall. And I can hide it by default. And then instead of, for example, opening a Lightbox here, what I can do is I can just expand, like show or expand the paywall. So paywall dot show. Okay. And if I just go ahead and I publish that, and I head back to my blog page, then you can see that I don't have the pop-up, but I do have this kind of permanent paywall that I have on the page. And that's useful if you have like some parts of the page that you want to black out and other parts that you don't want to block out. And it would work with the same logic. So the tutorial here is really about the logic. It's not so much about the use of Lightbox versus something else I might not have even thought of. So it's really up to you how you implement it, but basically I wanted to show you how you would find out if the person's a member and if the person is subscribed to a pricing plan and conditionally make something happen based on that. So I hope you found this tutorial informative. We're going to wrap up here. If you enjoyed the content, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and give this video a thumbs up. If you have any questions, you have several options. So you can leave a comment in the comments below. I try to always answer comments that I can understand and have just the right amount of detail. So if it's just 2 words, I probably won't respond. And if it's like you pasted, 300 lines of code, I probably won't respond as well. But you have other options. You can also head over to the forum on the WixWiz website and post kind of more lengthy descriptive questions there that might need some screenshots or some code, etc. And you also have the option to join one of our member-only monthly Q&A sessions that I'm going to be doing live from now on. So please check out the channel membership and the upcoming live sessions if you want to learn more about that. So thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.